Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is a majestic plantation house constructed in 1794. In recent years it has been converted into a bed and breakfast inn, as well being used as a movie and TV location at various times. But, like many plantations, it was around in the days of slavery and, therefore, it has a horrific history from that era. In fact, some say that at least 10 murders occurred on the property. As you might suspect, this has led to the location having a history of hauntings. But, have these tales of hauntings been embellished or even made up over the 200-plus years of the plantation's existence? Central to one of the main haunting stories is Clark Woodruff, who was an early owner of the property. As was common with wealthy plantation owners in those days, Woodruff owned slaves. One of these slaves was a young girl who went by the name of Chloe. According to the legend, Chloe tried to protect herself from abusive treatment by eavesdropping on Woodruff's conversations. This scheme eventually failed and, in a fit of rage, Woodruff pulled his knife and sliced off the girl's ear. After that, Chloe wore a green turban to hide her mutilation. She also, it is said, plotted her revenge. The form of the revenge she chose was poisoning Woodruff's family by baking ground-up oleander leaves into a child's birthday cake. Some say her plan was to nurse the sick family back to health and gain a reputation as a healer, a profession that would provide her with a more protected and elevated status. Others say her intent was murder all along. In either case, the poison was a lethal dose for Mrs. Woodruff and 2 of the children. Chloe's deeds were revealed and she was hanged for her crime. Afterwards, her body was tossed into the Mississippi River. Not long afterwards, the tale goes, Woodruff himself was murdered. After that time, people reported seeing a ghost wearing a turban haunting the property. There's even a grainy photo taken sometime in 1992 that is supposed to be of this apparition. Some have reported hearing the cries of her victims accompanying her appearances. Others who have stayed at the plantation have reported that they have been startled awake by her peering at them their bedside. The problem is that when historical researchers investigated the tale, they found several indicators that Chloe's tale wasn't based in truth. First of all, plantation and local civic records do not have a record of a slave by the name of Chloe having been owned by the Woodruffs. Secondly, Mrs. Woodruff's death is recorded as yellow fever, not poisoning, several years after the date given for the incident. Her children lived even longer. And, Mr. Woodruff died of old age, not homicide. It's suspected that when ownership passed to someone who wanted to monetize the property in the 1950s, they embellished an existing story of a ghostly old woman in a green bonnet into the Chloe legend. Like many such tales, it grew and changed with each telling. And, that wasn't the end of the story, or should I say stories. Several other tragic events were associated with the plantation over the years. For example, there's the tale of 3 Union soldiers being shot when they raided the house, or several former owners being murdered in the house for some reason. But, one of these stories does have some basis in fact, although it too has been embellished as well. In 1871, the owner of the plantation, William Winter, was gunned down by an unknown assailant on the front veranda of the house. However, the ghostly legend of this tragedy is that he didn't die on the porch, but, instead, made it into the house and climbed 17 stairs before expiring in the arms of his loving wife. After this, heavy steps, someone on the stairs could be heard although nobody was there. While this story does have some factual basis in its origin, it still was embellished to make it more dramatic. Another rather creepy story is that there's an antique mirror in the grand hall of the house that frequently has small handprints on it, as if a child had touched it. But, the mirror is too high for a child to reach. Some have even reported seeing children in the mirror. Other ghostly events have been reported at Myrtles Plantation. Often these involve spectral children playing in various locations, such as the veranda. Some reported seeing the wraith-like figure of a young curly-haired girl floating outside windows. Another incident is the grand piano playing itself. Some film crews have reported having seen items moving by themselves. One of the most notable was during the filming of the remake of The Long Hot Summer in 1985. The crew had moved furniture around in the game room, the supposed location of some of the murders, to facilitate filming. When the crew returned the next day, the furniture had been moved back to its original location. As we know, if someone is expecting to see something unusual, like a ghost, they're likely to experience it in some way. Given the reputation of Myrtles Plantation as one of the most haunted houses in the U.S., it's no wonder people think they're seeing ghostly apparitions and hearing things going bump in the night. And we must not forget that the property owners over the years have used the hype of suspected paranormal activity to boost sales. The activity certainly got mentioned a lot more starting in the 1970s. If you want to investigate this in person, you can book a stay there. Ghosts or no ghosts, it's a very nice 3-star bed and breakfast with great reviews, although a bit on the pricey side. You can also get a historical daytime tour if the idea of sleeping in a haunted mansion creeps you out. What do you think? Is it just some tourist hype? Is there something paranormal going on there? Maybe some of both? Let us know what you think in the comments.